To order for the Planning and Zoning Commission of St. Lucie County. And I'm looking for my agenda because everything is out of order. If everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What a nice crowd for my last meeting as chair. Thank you for coming. We will now have roll call.
Ms. Townsend?
Present.
Mr. Odell?
Here.
Mr. Grande?
Here.
Mr. Reynolds?
Here.
Mr. Culverhouse?
Present.
Vice Chair Munt?
Here.
Chairman Morgan?
Yes, ma'am. Any announcements? Any disclosures?
Madam Chair, I did meet with a few of the residents.
Okay. Any others?
Madam Chair, I did get an email, but did not get a chance to respond or meet with them.
Not a problem.
Madam Chair, I too received an email and did not respond.
Shame on you guys for not responding to emails.
Madam Chairman, if the members could just indicate which petition item it was, so that
That'd be
I
great.
assume it's the first one of the first two, but if they could do that.
3A and B.
Yes, it was an invitation to visit the properties with a resident.
Same here.
And I responded to the email and did visit the properties.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think I may have received an email but did not respond.
Anybody else? Everybody?
Yes, Madam Chair. Crash, so.
Well, I feel left out. I didn't get an email, so.
Let's get your chairperson.
Darn. Okay, the minutes, and these are going to be the minutes from October 18th and the mini minutes from November 15th. If I could have a motion.
Madam Chair, I have one correction on the mini minutes. The date should read January 17, 2013, not 12.
That is correct. May I have a motion for the minutes as corrected?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to the public hearings. Item number 3A, Hayhurst, Larsen Properties. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. DeWitt.
Good evening, Madam Chair, fellow commissioners. Britton DeWitt, Senior Planner for the Record, presenting two concurrent small-scale future land use map amendments, both petitioned by Mr. Shawn Hearing, that are proposing a change from residential urban to commercial. So tonight we are only reviewing the proposed future land use change. If both of these proposals are approved by the Board of County Commissioners, the applicant must return to the Planning and Zoning Commission and request a change in zoning prior to changing the use on either of the properties. Both future land use map amendments are public hearings, and notice was published in the St. Lucie News Tribune on January 4th. Here are photos of the public hearing notice placed on both properties. This map identifies the 500-foot mail notification area, and distributed in your packet are public comments from the surrounding neighborhood, which contains 36 letters in support of the proposed change and 2 not in favor. Here is an aerial view of the subject properties, which are both located on Prima Vista Boulevard, which is a 4-lane arterial divided highway operating at an acceptable level of service C. Item number 3A is for the 2 parcels located on the north side of Prima Vista Boulevard owned by the Hayhurst and Larsens. Item 3B is for the parcel on the south side of Prima Vista and is owned by the applicant, Mr. Shawn Hearing. Both parcels are located in the River Park Community Overlay Zone, which provides for greater standards of review than other areas of the county. So the hearing parcel is just west of the lighted intersection of Prima Vista and Rio Mar Court, and the Hayhurst Larsen property is on the northeast section of Prima Vista Boulevard and Lomas Street. And off to the right of the image here is US 1. And of course, all property owners had to sign and notarize an affidavit agreeing to the proposals. Both of the subject parcels have a future land use designation of residential urban, which allows up to 5 units to the acre, and are requesting a change in future land use to commercial. And the closest existing commercial future land use is shown here in red on the right and is approximately 940 feet to the east of the Larsen property. And then the hearing property is another 655 feet from the Hayhurst property, which makes the hearing parcel a little over 1,600 feet from the closest commercial future land use designation. So when considering both the proposals concurrently, the analysis staff conducted indicates that both the commercial future land use is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and both amendments meet policy 1153, which requires the property to be within 1,300 feet of the same or greater type land use classification. The amendments also meet policy 1154 by having water and wastewater services available through PSL utilities. And due to the restrictive rezoning options to commercial office and commercial neighborhood only, the amendments are considered compatible with the surrounding residential neighborhood as per Comprehensive Plan Table 1-3. As mentioned earlier, the subject properties are located on Prima Vista within the River Park Community Overlay Zone. And the purpose of this overlay zone is to allow for an orderly transition from residential to non-residential uses by requiring the subject parcels, which are not located at a specific intersection, to go through the future land use map amendment process prior to rezoning to the commercial office or commercial neighborhood zoning districts. And because the permitted uses in the CO and CN zoning districts typically only service the surrounding neighborhoods and don't attract regional customers, the CO and CN zoning districts are therefore compatible with the RU future land use designation and don't normally require a land use amendment prior to rezoning. But because the subject parcels are located in the overlay zone, a future land use map amendment to commercial in addition to the rezoning is required per section 40205 of the Land Development Code. And as I just mentioned, the permitted uses within CO and CN zoning districts are those that typically only service the surrounding neighborhoods and don't attract regional customers, which provides for their compatibility with the residential area and the potential to reduce surrounding traffic by capturing local trips and preventing a farther commute. And examples of such uses allowed in CO and CN are banks, laundry services, hair salons, real estate offices, retail trade under 6,000 square feet, florist, insurance offices, health services, and travel agencies. And furthermore, the River Park Community Overlay Zone specifically prohibits eating and drinking places, fueling stations, and drive-in facilities. So not only are gas stations not permitted, but none currently exist within the River Park Community Overlay Zone. That particular property is not within the overlay zone. So Prima Vista Boulevard is a 4-lane divided arterial roadway operating at an acceptable level of service C. The Florida Department of Transportation 2011 traffic counts identified an annual average daily traffic count of 30,000 trips on Prima Vista at the intersection of Rio Mar Drive and an average peak hour trip of 18,000. The State Department of Emergency Management identified Prima Vista as one of only 2 east-west emergency evacuation routes within the city of Port St. Lucie. And a traffic impact report is not required for small-scale future land use map amendments since the traffic impacts cannot be analyzed until a site development proposal is prepared. And due to the nature of the uses allowed in CO and CN zoning districts, the proposed uses could potentially reduce surrounding traffic impacts by capturing local trips and preventing a farther commute. And with that, staff is recommending that the future land use map amendment for the Hayhurst Larsen properties and the hearing property both be forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners with a recommendation for approval. And the public hearing needs to be open and closed separately for each item, and staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for questions of staff before we get to the agent and the presentation. Any questions of staff?
I don't have a staff, but I did have some of the residents had concerns, and I just think that they should be explained that the applicant that has made the request for this is not the owner of the property. So if Britton could just explain to them.
Mr. Shawn Hearing owns the parcel here to the south on Prima Vista, and he is also the applicant for the owners Hayhurst and Larsen that are on the northeast intersection of Prima Vista and Loma Street. However, the owners of these two parcels have signed an affidavit approving of the requested change in land use.
Is that
Madam,
correct?
No, I'm fine. I just wanted them to be explained because
Okay.
they had questions. And basically what it's stating so that they can understand is it's no different than hiring an attorney to represent you. As long as you sign the affidavit, anybody can represent you.
Mr. Grandy?
yeah, Britton, you referenced the Prima Vista Boulevard overlay zone in your introduction here. And I'm stretching my memory here, but if I remember right, in that overlay zone, there were properties that were recommended at some point to go into commercial. Can you tell us if these particular properties were among those that the overlay zone recommended for commercial?
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioner Grande, Section 40202 of the River Park Community Overlay Zone identifies intersection zones that are to be areas for commercial office and commercial neighborhood zoning, and they are at Prima Vista Boulevard and US 1, Floresta, and Aroso. Those are intersection zones. If the properties are located at a mid-block zone, such as the subject properties here, they must first go through a comprehensive plan amendment before they can just rezone. So the intersection zones, they can go straight to rezoning. Mid-block zones have to do comprehensive plan amendment, then rezone.
Okay, so these were not identified in the overlay zone document as intended eventually for commercial?
Madam Chairman, Mr. Brandy, I think that what the overlay does is it identifies the intersections as having a simpler process, but I think by having the mid-block zones and having an extra step, I don't think it necessarily says that one or the other shouldn't be considered. It's just that if you're going to be in the mid-block, you have this extra step to consider, and that's the process that we're following.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If none, Mr. Curry?
Good evening. For the record, Brad Curry with Land Design South, representing the applicant in a request to change the future land use of 3 parcels along Prima Vista. I've prepared a very brief PowerPoint presentation just to further explain some of the aspects of the request. With me here tonight is Mr. Shawn Hearing, the applicant, as well as Mr. Richard Hayhurst, one of the owners of the other properties. Again, the request tonight, sorry. The request tonight is for a future land use change, small-scale future land use change of 3 parcels from the RU future land use designation to the commercial future land use designation. Subject properties are located, as Britton stated, on Prima Vista Boulevard to the west of US 1. This is a little bit of a zoom in of the properties. As you can see, Britton did a great job explaining where the properties are. Future land use of the property is, of the 3 properties are RU, residential urban, current future land use, and the current zoning is RS4 of those properties. And those properties are identified in the areas darkened in on the screen. I wanted to kind of go over some of the aspects of the properties. I think it's important to get a little bit of background on the history and the characteristics of the properties. Prima Vista, as you guys know, is one of 6 roads that connects US 1 out to the Turnpike or to I-95. It's identified as a pretty significant roadway. When you look at the overall county, it's easy to tell. It's only 2 connections across the river in the city of Port St. Lucie. Tonight's request is a land use change only. I think this is the first step in really a 3-step process. The first step is changing the land use, getting the land use consistent. The second step would be getting a zoning designation that allows the uses that you want to put on the property. And then the third step would be a site plan approval. So this is really just the very beginning of the process, a pretty lengthy process that must be gone through for these properties. You guys are going to hear me say this a bunch tonight. Again, the 3 properties have to come back before. No use is being proposed tonight, although Mr. Herring does have a massage business that he works right there at Prima Vista in US 1 today, rents space, and then Mr. Hayhurst also has a hearing aid center on US 1. Both of those individuals have been River Park business owners in River Park for over 20 years. These are not out-of-town guys. These are local guys that have been in the community for over 20 years, and they want to stay in the community. Britton touched on it in her presentation, and this is what you're going to hear me say a bunch tonight, and that is that if these 3 properties were anywhere else in the entire county except for in this overlay, we would not be here tonight. This request for a change in land use to allow CO and CN uses is only required because of the overlay. The overlay states that if you're in mid-block, it doesn't say you can't do commercial. It just says you have to ask for a change in the commercial land use, as Mr. Satterley provided clarification. This is Table 1-3 from the St. Lucie County Comprehensive Plan, and this is called a land use zoning compatibility matrix. Every municipality in the state of Florida has something similar to this in their comp plan. And as a planner, I look to this to determine what zoning designations are allowed in the different land use classifications. And if you look, that's the RU future land use designation. That's our future land use designation of the property today. The CN and CO zoning designations, as you can see, they have the X there. That means that they are compatible. So again, if we were anywhere else in the county, we would be able to request a rezone to the CN designation or the CO designation without going through this process. This is an extra step. It's an expensive step. It's a lengthy process step. It requires a P&Z meeting as well as going to the Board of County Commissioners, and it is required as part of the overlay. As I previously stated, these are local property owners, been in River Park as business owners for over 20 years. I also wanted to stress that this isn't something that we determined to do overnight. Shawn didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, I want to change the land use of my property, or Mr. Hayhurst said, I want to change. These guys have been looking to change this overlay since 2007. Shawn first met with me in 2007. And we went through this process. I told him what it was going to take, what we're doing right now, and Shawn says, gosh, that's a big process. I'm going to try to do it on my own. And so he started working on it and met with county staff as part of their pre-application meeting to determine what was going to be required. At that time, it was determined that a change to the overlay might be the best bet, not selecting a change to the future land use amendments of the individual parcels, but revising the entire overlay was what was determined. I think that from being a part of the association, Mr. Herring, my client, he became a member. He was on the board, I think, in his first meeting is a story that I've heard. And they began really to get signatures and to get support for changing the overlay. In July 2009, the overlay, the River Park Homeowner Association reached out to the county, and I think they began to realize that this was a little bit bigger than what they could probably take on themselves. And they asked for assistance from the county. And at that time, the county staff was extremely busy, and the request was presented, and I believe it was determined that there were other projects that were determined to be had a little higher priority than revising the River Park overlay. So this letter basically says, we understand your request, but unfortunately, the planning staff can't help you. Again, this is another example of Shawn, Mr. Herring, the overall overlay, the Homeowner Association reaching out to try to get changes to the overlay to allow for more commercial uses. It was determined that they needed to send out and get a vote for the people who lived along Prima Vista. And so Shawn, with the help from the planning staff, they did draft a tally of votes to say, hey, are you in favor or not in favor of commercial uses on Prima Vista? And so they did that. HOA paid for the cost. And they were able to get all of the signatures back to the highest percentage that was required in order to show that there was a need for or a wish for commercial along Prima Vista. And then they were told in 2009 that not only do you need to get the property owners along Prima Vista, but the property owners behind as well. And they did a second mailing, and they again attained the required votes for that. I think at that point the county determined, the county staff was like, this is a pretty significant project, and they kind of bowed out of it, and it more or less died at that time. And Mr. Herring was able to save up his money and came to visit me earlier last year, and we really started this process of changing the actual land uses. Again, I go through all of this. I know it's a little monotonous, but I want to make sure you guys understand this is something that Mr. Herring has had a dream for many years. This isn't something that just came up overnight. We've talked a lot about the River Park overlay. It was adopted in 1996. This is an aerial of Prima Vista from 1994. You can see the bridge just starting to get built there. Prima Vista was a different roadway in 1996 than it is today. Did not have anywhere near the number of trips, and it changed since 1996. And so therefore we believe that there is a need to change what the overlay allows. I did some research on traffic counts, and we've heard traffic counts from Britton earlier tonight, and we're going to hear them again, I think, from some of the residents of what the roadway is. This is the title cover page from the St. Lucie County TPO. They do traffic counts every year, I believe, and this is from the fall of 2011. I know it's a little bit dated. And they pick select roadways, and they produce this report just giving you the average daily trips, the PM peak hour, and the AM peak hour. And so I looked at this list, and it does include county and state roads. And I wanted to do a David Letterman top 10 roadways of St. Lucie County, but I figured that I would really bore you guys at that point, so I limited it down to top 3. Now these are the top 3 roadways in St. Lucie County for average annual daily trips. And it specifies a specific point along that roadway, and so I wanted just to touch on that with you guys. Number 3, the third highest in that list was Prima Vista Boulevard, 400 feet west of US 1. Again, that's right up the street from Mr. Hayhurst and Mr. Larsen's property. 25,000 average annual daily trips. Here's an aerial of that general location. And what I'm going to do for each of these designations, or each of these points along the roadway, is I was able to go to Google Earth and take a picture on the north side of the street and take a picture on the south side of the street so that you guys could see what is actually happening at those points. Again, you have commercial office, bank on the south side, and then the retail center on the north side at that intersection. So you have those amount of trips, number 3 roadway. Roadway number 2 is St. Lucie West Boulevard, 900 feet west of Peacock, 29,000 average annual trips.
It's east of Peacock.
I'm sorry, east of Peacock. That's what my map shows. Again, you have an aerial showing the location, and then on the north and the south you have commercial uses at that intersection. So we've made it to number 1, our top roadway in that list. Does anyone want to guess where that section is? Could you imagine? That is along Prima Vista, 260 feet west of Rio Mar, 30,000 average annual daily trips, and it is directly in front of Mr. Herring's property. And the interesting thing about this is that when you look at the pictures on the north and south side of the roadways, you don't see commercial here. You see residential uses. It's one of the only instances, it's the only instance in those top 3, and I could probably do the top 10, where you have residential on both the north and the south sides of the street. So I think it's a pretty telling thing that you have that. Now, I did find in further research, I did find a couple of other roadways that have more trips than 30,000, and I just wanted to make sure in case people said that, because 30,000 isn't the most trips on any roadway. Port St. Lucie Boulevard, for example, right there at Westmoreland or Veterans Memorial Parkway is 36,000 average annual daily trips. That's 6,000 more daily trips than the other, and again, it's commercial on both sides of the street. And then another example that I wanted to use was US 1, just south of Virginia Avenue, right up the street from where we are today, 28,500 less than what's on Prima Vista in front of Mr. Herring's property. And that's US 1, commercial, again, on both sides of the street. So begin to paint a picture that on all of these streets, you have 25,000 at Prima Vista, 29,000 in St. Lucie West, 30,000 on Prima Vista in front of Mr. Herring's property, 36,000 on Port St. Lucie Boulevard, and 28,500 on US 1. And again, all of those have commercial on both sides except for the 30,000 average annual daily trips. Wanted to briefly touch on the neighborhood meeting. We had one neighborhood meeting on September the 19th. We sent out approximately 100 notices and had 22 people attend. And we had that actually at the River Park boat ramp there, right there in Prima Vista. I think we heard from the majority of the people that were there that they were worried about the proposed uses on the property. I think there was concerns about gas stations and fast food restaurants and those sorts of things. And again, we're not talking about uses tonight. This is just a land use discussion. You know, we still have to come in and get the zoning approval and site plan approval. And staff, as Britton mentioned, has verbally stated they would only support commercial neighborhood and commercial office uses on the property. And we agree with that. I mean, that fits in line with what we're proposing to do on the property. And I was just reviewing the overlay in the code. And the overlay is very specific, and it says the only commercial uses that are even allowed at those intersections are commercial uses that are consistent with the CO and CN designation. So I believe the overlay restricts these three properties even more, in that it will only allow CO and CN uses. And just, I know Britton had mentioned some of the uses for CO and CN. This is the CN commercial neighborhood, and I think she hit on the high points of that in her presentation, but this is right out of your land development code. And then your CO uses as well, permitted uses. In summary, we're not really proposing any uses tonight. I think we have an idea of what we want to put on the properties. Again, my client has a massage clinic that he's operated there for 20 years. We have a gentleman who has a hearing aid center that he's operated in River Park for 20 years. So I don't want to say that that's definitely what's going on there, but the security that you guys should have is knowing that whatever we put on there is limited to the CO and the CN zoning designation. I think it's a question of whether commercial uses are compatible on that area, and I would say that they are compatible because commercial office and commercial neighborhood uses are compatible on every piece of RU land use that's in the county according to your comprehensive plan. So that's compatible by the mere fact that it's allowed in your comprehensive plan. I think you're going to hear potentially about gas stations and other intense uses on the property, and hopefully I've given you enough level of comfort that that's not going to happen on this property, that there's too many other steps that would prohibit us from doing that. And again, just remember that this is the first step. It's not a spur of the moment request. Been working on it since 2007. Considerable time in attempting to achieve his dream for this property. Local owners, local businesses. These are not out-of-town guys. Been here forever. We've got numerous letters of support. I think I don't know, you guys know me pretty well, and I think this is the first time I've got more in support than opposition for an application. So I'm excited about that. I think you got 36 for and 2 against, I believe is what Britton had stated. We have a staff recommendation of approval. Staff has reviewed this and found it consistent. We really aren't going against any overlay. The overlay says if you want to do commercial mid-block, you have to file this application, and that's what we're doing. We're not going against that. And I think your main question is residential appropriate directly adjacent to Prima Vista? I think that's the final kind of question that you guys need to ask yourself tonight. That concludes my presentation. I would like to have a moment at the end to address all of these comments from residents as they come up, if you don't mind. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Munt.
Mr. Curry, if you'll look up here for just a moment. We have 5 very striking ladies, and we're not all guys.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please.
That's my informal.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Culverhouse.
I concur. But Mr. Curry, based upon the responses that you got at the neighborhood meeting and during the time after this application was filed, what are the objectionable possible uses that could be, the property could be used for, that are most concerned to the residents?
Mr. Culverhouse, I am unaware that the uses that I have heard are uses that are not allowed in the CN and CO designation. Uses like gas station, fast food restaurants, those sorts of things. They are not allowed in the CO and CN. I have not heard of a use that's allowed in the CO and CN that that the residents have spoken out against. I have not heard anything that is allowed in those two zoning districts.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Grandi?
you keep saying CO and CN, and I think you inferred that CO and CN would be the only ones allowed. And I think you said that CO and CN would be the only ones your client would ask for. But near as I can tell, the only thing that you're asking for tonight is the future land use change.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay, so if the future land use change was changed to commercial, I don't see anything at all that would prevent your client from coming in subsequently and asking for CG. That is, if I understood your reference and your reference to the overlay zone, the restrictions to CO and CN only relate to those properties that are specifically referenced. So any other commercial property on Prima Vista within the overlay zone would have the ability to file a request for CG or a gas station or anything else that could exist in CG, and then it would be up to the reviewers to approve it or not approve it. But you would not be restricted from submitting that. Do I understand that correctly?
Commissioner, or Mr. Grande, the table, and Britton, can you bring that up for a moment? Do you have that? I don't have that. You have it here. One about the mid-block. I have the section back at in my folder, but I was hoping that
I thought you showed us the zoning and land use table in your presentation.
No, there's a table that's in the code, and she doesn't have it up there, that says, can you go back one more, Britton? Okay. Let me go get what I have at my desk.
Madam Chairman, Commissioner Grande, Comprehensive Plan Policy 1183 requires any new CG or commercial general zoning to be a minimum of 1 acre in size. So these parcels would need to be over 42,000 square feet before they could request a rezoning to CG. Right now, we're looking at less than half of that size for both of the parcels.
Table 4-8 of the River Park overlay talks about the intersection zones and the mid-block zones. And in the intersection zones, it says that you have to do a PUD or a PNRD, is what it states. And it says that in those PUDs and PNRDs, the board is familiar with the fact that a PUD you can ask for just about any use you want to, but it has in parentheses that only CO and CN uses are allowed at those intersections. Then it goes into the mid-block zone, and it doesn't have that limitation. I've reviewed codes a lot, and I see it as implied that since it's in the intersection zones where it says CO and CN uses only, that it also means the mid-block zones. Could I ask for commercial general? Maybe so. Maybe Mr. Grande is correct. But it will come before this board, and you guys will have the opportunity to review it. The code is a little unclear. I will agree with you.
Oh, no, that's fine. The other question I had was the proximity to existing commercial. Did I see something that said the property that your client actually owns would not qualify for commercial unless the other two properties were changed?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Grande, that is correct. The first item, 3A, is the Hayhurst Larsen property, because without that one getting approved, the hearing property, item 3B, would not be eligible.
So your client actually is dependent on the two that he doesn't own in order to qualify for commercial?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, Mr. Grandi, and in looking at the code section that you were just discussing, the table 4.8, it would be in my interpretation that because of the sort of the restrictive nature of the intersection zones, I think it would be hard-pressed to say that because it is restricted to PUD and PNRD with the CO and CN uses only, that in the mid-block zones, that because that language is not entirely clear, I think it would be a hard case to make that anybody envisioned that those mid-block zones would somehow be eligible for more intensity than the intersection zones. And I think further, the use limitations in 40205 specifically prohibit, regardless of whatever zoning comes in, would be the eating and drinking places, the gasoline and fuel service, or the drive-in facilities. So, my professional opinion, I think that that mid-block zone would be subsidiary to the intersection zone, and that the CO or CN uses would apply there as well.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Culverhouse.
if I could direct this to staff, how often has this type of proposal been approved with non-contiguous parcels?
I'm not sure that I understand. I mean, there are two separate applications. The Hayhurst application is the first application. If the board were to approve that, then that would make the other one eligible. If the board doesn't approve the Hayhurst, then the other one is no longer eligible.
Right, but it's sort of like a daisy chain, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah. But I mean, it's not outside of being allowable either.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing, and I will open the public hearing for item 3A, which is the Hayhurst Larsen property, the 2 units, or the 2 parcels. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, you would need to approach the podium. You need to state your name and your address for us for the record. And you'll be allowed to speak 1 time, so I'm going to let you know that. Thanks. Go ahead.
Are you allowed to speak 1 time for A and 1 time for B?
Yes, sir. I will be opening up 3B after we're all finished with 3A. Thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
Bobby Deemer's husband, 151 North Naranja, River Park. And don't take this one out of my 3 minutes.
Your first name also.
Walter.
I knew that. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I did not know, Madam Chairman, this was your last night. I would have brought you a peach. Let me just say something. Ordinance, the River Park Overlay Ordinance, Section 40202, Section B, the River Park Community Overlay Zone, shall be divided into 2 subzones. Section 1.1, the intersection zone. The intersection zone shall be centered at the following locations: A, Prima Vista and South US 1, B, Prima Vista and Floresta, and C, Prima Vista and Arosa. And so it is part of, the overlay zone. And then Section 40205, use limitations. The following uses shall be specifically prohibited regardless of zoning classification within the River Park Overlay Zone. A, eating and drinking places. B, gasoline stations. And C, drive-in facilities. Ladies and gentlemen of the Planning and Zoning Board, if you take a ride through the intersection of Arosa and Prima Vista, you will find on the southeast corner a gasoline station that was built even though the applicant came before this board and assured the members of the board at that time that she had, quote, no intention of building a gas station, unquote. The board went along. Do you see why the poor citizens of River Park get upset about these things? We've been promised things that, these things can't be done, we can't do this, we can't do that, and all of a sudden, lo and behold, we have a gas station, even though ordinance number 96-010 specifically prohibits it. And there was and is a gas station there. So I guess rules are rules unless you don't want to follow them. Let me just quickly say, now you can start my 3 minutes, because I get upset. The River Park Overlay Zone was adopted in August of 1996, quote, to recognize changing conditions along Prima Vista Boulevard, and, quote, to provide for a logical and orderly transition from residential to non-residential zoning where appropriate, and to protect those parcels which remain residential from the impact of non-residential development. Before it was implemented, a survey of more than 1,000 residents was made by Dr. Fauntley Carotis. It's a 40-page study. It was published in 1995. And the findings, quote, Dr. Carotis stated that at this time that there is no support for further commercial uses in the Prima Vista Boulevard area from the planning and zoning minutes of July 20, 1995. Those findings were incorporated into the overlay plan. And then some people infiltrated what had been a homeowners society that degenerated into a small group of people lobbying for commercial with very few members compared to what used to be. And it turned out from a letter from Robin Meyer, Assistant Director of Growth Management, dated December 3, 2008, we also began to receive comments from residents of the River Park neighborhood who were not supportive of the original changes or additional changes. This additional information changed our original understanding and scope of the project from a simple neighborhood supported code change to a major neighborhood planning effort. And the staff, as has been said, did not have the resources to comply with that. So I would submit to you that what you have here is a request for spot zoning. What I think you need, and I humbly suggest as a long-suffering resident of River Park with our gas station, what you need is a careful and thorough study similar to what happened in 1995 and 1996. I don't think spot zoning is appropriate in this case. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Grande.
before Mr. Deemer leaves, I kind of got confused there. I thought, Brittany, you said that gas station was not in the overlay zone?
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioner Grande. If you see where the mouse is pointing at this map at the far west of Arosa and Prima Vista, it is not shaded. That large parcel there is outside of the overlay zone, which is how this individual was able to have a gas station permitted at the corner.
Now, I thought the overlay document specifically references the intersection of Prima Vista and Arosa.
It does. It says it goes at about 500 and some odd feet in.
So that reference is in the overlay zone.
That it starts 500 feet in from Arosa Boulevard and Prima Vista.
So the overlay document, which defines what can occur at that intersection, doesn't cover that intersection, I think is what you're saying. Yes? No?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay.
I was looking at the order.
Anyone else? I see everybody lined up.
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Hensel. I live at 702 Southeast Thornhill Drive. Been a resident of St. Lucie County for 15 years. Just wanted to come up here and say I support this proposal to change the land use. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, they're lining up against the...
I will be very short. Could I have the overlay that's got the, the map that's got the color on it and zooms in a bit more? That one, yes.
We really do need to, they're lined up against the wall, so if you want to get in line, that would be great. And we've got one that's going to wait. Thank you. Sorry. Thanks. I want to keep it orderly.
Good evening. My name is Christina Kuklinski. I live at 722 Northwest Cardinal Drive. I've been a resident of Port St. Lucie for close to 20 years, and I just wanted to say I, too, support this project to be passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me for being slow.
That's okay.
Yeah, my name is Donald Kuklinski, Christina's husband. I also live at 722 Northwest Cardinal Drive. I've been a resident of St. Lucie County for 38 years. I've watched this county grow and flourish, throughout that time. I fully support, this project due to the fact of it can bring a little bit of professionalism into a little more, jobs. Under my experience and what I've seen, rezoning and doing things, boost property values, which desperately people need in this area. They need their property to be worth the money that it once was. The possibility of professional buildings, nurses, doctors, staff like that coming in this area and smaller businesses, that means more jobs for people in our area that are desperately needed at this time. And that's about all I have to say at this point, but thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Philip McHugh. I am a resident of St. Lucie County for 8 years. I live at 171 Northwest Swan Mill Circle, and I'm going to make it quick. I do support this.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Good evening. I'm Maria McCadden, and I live on Celestia Court in Port St. Lucie. My home is a stone's throw from the intersection of Prima Vista and Floresta. I was able to purchase this home with the money I unexpectedly received from my father's life insurance payout when he died in 2001. It was a bittersweet experience when I purchased this property, since this was to be my first home, thanks to my father. I mention this to stress the fact that I love the River Park community, and I love my home, and I especially feel a strong connection between my house, this land, and my father. But I realize, too, that I live within 50 yards of what has now become a major highway and a very dangerous intersection. The constant noise of traffic coming from Prima Vista is oftentimes unsettling, especially when my own windows shake in my home from the vibrations of someone's car audio system booming away until, thankfully, the traffic light changes. The heavy traffic alone has caused property values along Prima Vista to fall. Add to that the real estate crisis in St. Lucie County, the high unemployment rate, and restrictive zoning laws, and you've got the key ingredients for a depressed and rapidly deteriorating neighborhood where the current crime rate is surely to go up as property values continue to go down. Homeowners along Prima Vista are trapped. Those of us living adjacent to these properties are also trapped. Outdated bylaws and zoning restrictions prevent us from enjoying the homes we love. Young families can't let their children play in their yards because of the traffic on Prima Vista, while those of us facing retirement cannot enjoy the benefits of a lifetime of hard work. Some homeowners resort to renting to those whoever they can because nobody wants to live on a freeway. And those who do live in these rental properties tend to be young and disruptive, further adding to the decline of our beloved community. Now, the naysayers of these proposed changes to the River Park land use and rezoning do not own property along this busy corridor, so I fail to see how this commission can seriously consider their input. They claim that the proposed changes are haphazard and radical, yet these plans include language that sets clear standards and limitations for land use and development. The opponents to these proposed changes seem to think that I just want to cash in and move out, but they are wrong. And it leaves me to question their opposition to this change. I have spent the last 10 years improving both the interior and exterior of my home. I've repaired hurricane damage and have painted murals inside my home. I've created a garden with vegetables and flowers, and I've planted fruit trees that still have yet to bear fruit. I have thought about where I might move in case we change. My answer is clear. I would move to another home in the River Park community, somewhere that keeps me close to my family, shopping, my job, the river, and the land. Now, does this sound like someone who wants to pave paradise and put up a parking lot? This River Park community has been around since 1956 and will probably be around for another 57 years. But it will never stay the same. No neighborhood ever does. I believe that the proposed changes before this commission tonight are a part of an effort to address the needs of our greater community while meeting the immediate needs of those of us living with the debilitating effects of traffic and growth. I also believe that these proposed changes are full of hope for a brighter, more balanced future for the heart of Port St. Lucie, our River Park community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. McCadden? Ms. McCadden? We have Mr. Munt.
Could you have staff point to your home?
My home is on the other side of the river, just 3 parcels in from the intersection at Floresta and Prima Vista.
She's right here.
I'm on the southwest, I'm sorry.
Okay, you're the other side of the river then?
On the other side of the river.
Okay. And a question for staff, just generally staff, off the top of your head, what tends to be more valuable property, commercial or residential?
Madam Chair, members of the board, in terms of value, square footage value, typically commercial property tends to be more valuable.
Thank you, Mr. Sadley.
Next.
Thank you for pointing out the rules. we live by rules, and if I might have that other name. Yeah, thank you. No, the previous one.
And don't forget the name and address.
William Bergman, 302 Tranquilla. I live actually fairly close to you. And I oppose this plan.
You'll need to speak in the microphone for the recording
I oppose
purposes.
this plan. As you look at the diagram, you will, I think, see the irrelevance of mentioning the 30,000 trips on Westmoreland and St. Lucie Boulevard, because those have lanes in them, center lanes, center dividers. And when you come across that bridge from the west, from the left, and you go around that turn, coming out of that green area, you see that Prima Vista suddenly narrows. What you have there is a traffic funnel. What my predecessor and I experience actually farther to the west is irrelevant to the point that I'm making here. So where I live doesn't, I like to listen to the birds and so forth, but I prefer birds that I can eat. The point here I'm making is that this is a funnel and there's no space to widen that. I would like to make the point that this is an unsafe proposal and that there are alternatives nearby. And I probably have more time, but I will yield that to the next speaker.
Now, I'm from memory, which I traveled it today twice, so I'm 2 of the 30,000. It's 4-lane with a center lane? So it's 5 lanes?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's all the way from US 1 all the way? Okay, thanks.
Hi, my name is Brian Peffer. I live at 161 Southwest Grimaldo Terrace in Port St. Lucie. Been a long-time resident. I've lived here since I was 13. Known Shawn Herring for a number of years. And I just wanted to say I vote yes for this proposal because he helped change my life. You know, he's a Qigong instructor. He got me into Qigong. He's taught me food-based healing, which I have gone to school and learned, and now I'm teaching myself to teach other people how to conquer disease. And with this wellness center he wants to put in, it can only do good things for the community. It's all positive energy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Selena Costello. I live on Deacon Drive since 2000, and I am in favor of the proposal. And I don't really have much to add because somebody else has already said it better.
Mike.
I don't really understand why the traffic would not be an issue on this road because it is a hellish place to live. I know because some members of my family do live on that road, and that's all I have to say.
Thanks.
I'm Dorothy Nichols. We have lived at 209 Prima Vista. That's halfway between Floresta and Oroso since 1988. It used to be a pleasant place to live. It is no longer. Values have plummeted. No one in their right mind would bring a family to live on that street. It is not a pleasant place to live. Changes are long overdue, zoning. Thank you. I absolutely approve.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mr. Costello. I'm at Deacon Drive in Port St. Lucie. I've been here since before 2000. I have a house right next door to this young lady. My kids live at that house. I feel unsafe for them. They don't get to sleep at night because of the traffic. I visit their house with their doors closed and windows closed, and it's not a comfortable area anymore. I am very agreeable on this proposal. I think it should go on through. It will help the neighborhood. I know a lot of disabled area people in our neighborhood that are having to walk all the way up and down to Publix because that's the only place they can get supplies. This area, I think, would really help our area because it would give us access to closer instead of having to try to walk to Publix or all the way out to the gas station and pay exorbitant prices. I have neighbors that are having to go to the gas station because they can't walk the other one, and they're paying $5 to $6 a gallon for a gallon of milk. So I see positive in there. I don't see anything negative about this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. That'll be $5 for the phone going off. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Hello, I'm Michael Costello. I live at 185 Celestia Court, right on where is it? Right on the street, or right next to the street, and it is extremely loud. I think commercial buildings would do very well there, so I support this proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Costello. I also live at 185 Celestia, and I support it.
Thank you. I guess I should have said, raise your hands if you support it, and we didn't have to go through all this. But we all want our FaceTime.
Hi, my name is Sarah Brunner. I live on Prima Vista Boulevard at an intersection, 490 East Prima Vista Boulevard. Unfortunately, my intersection is not an intersection that automatically can build on because I'm within 500 feet of the center of the intersection of Naranja and Prima Vista. So I would have to have 5 continuous lots before I could do anything, which I probably could. But that isn't the point. It isn't a road that anyone would want to come and buy my house and live there with their children, because number one, it's dirty. I have bottles in my yard every morning, cigarette butts. We had to replace all our windows because of the noise and the dirt. We had no choice when they widened it. I think the proposal to let Prima Vista go commercial should be between the board, the county, and the people who live on there, not the people who live on the side streets or the streets behind us or 4.5 miles away just because they live in River Park. That doesn't give you the right to tell people that they don't have the right to even have their property worth what they paid for it and the improvements that they put on it, into it. Our property is not worth, our property is worth $60,000 less than what we paid for it and what we did when we built onto it. So I don't really feel that someone who lives on a side street, maybe 5 or 6 houses away from me, can tell me what I could do with my property if I wanted to put a business in there. I certainly wouldn't want to put in a gas station or a restaurant or a drive-through restaurant, but I should have the right to have a real estate office, a dentist's office, or something. And we came to the county in 1994 to find out about going commercial if we wanted to put in an office there. And number one, we were shot down. And then 2 years later, we got the overlay, which we were never notified of the overlay. I've been told I was. I've been told that they came to our house and gave us a piece of paper, told us what the overlay was going to be and what was going to happen. I guess that just must have been one of the days I was sitting in the back of my house trying to figure out how I could get my money out of my property and run away with my carpet bag. But that's not it. I bought the house, moved in 1982 because I liked the house. No, we didn't have the wide road, the 2 bridges, but they should be able to have commercial property if they want to, anyone, as long as it's within what you're telling them they can have, which is not a gas station or a restaurant. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is James Gift. I live at 767 Loma Street, just down the street from this property. I'm against it strongly, and I would like to point out a few items why. There is no sewerage in this area, so if they put it into any kind of business, and I say any kind, the Board of Health is going to come in and require a raised leach field. That means more runoff, especially for the property on the river. I don't care who tells you otherwise, when you have a leach field, it's going to run off, and there's going to be certain things that's going in the river and polluting the river. If these properties approved, that means more concrete driveways, parking areas. I think the law requires that they have to have a certain amount of parking spaces, whether it's blacktopped, concrete, or whatever. And for example, when Hurricane Isaac come through the fringes of it, we got between 12 and 16 inches of rain. Any of this land is going to be completely saturated. So the runoff from the driveways, the parking areas, are going to go into the river. This is going to be pollution, antifreeze from cars, grease and oil falling off of cars. It's going to be pollution of the river. I hate to see the river polluted. There's no parking on Prima Vista, so they have to have the parking on their property. The other thing is the drainage in this area is very poor. There's one canal between Lomas and Altura that takes the bulk of the runoff. That crosses over under Prima Vista, right by this property. The next one that's hooked into this same drain is the north side of Loma Street and Lindo Lane. That all drains in there. That backs up until the other ditch is drained. The next property is this commercial property on Prima Vista. It's going to drain out, and that's going to back up. For example, Lindo Lane was underwater from that bad storm. We have some good engineers that try their best, but they don't have the field experience, I don't think, for this type of thing. Maybe they do. I've been in construction all my life. I have a little bit of experience, I think. But this is a very sad thing that when the property is going to be affected is all residential by the added raised leach fields, concrete parking, and now the traffic snarl. All right, Prima Vista has up to 25,000. They're trying to compare it to Fort Pierce and St. Lucie West, which is divided highways, and you cannot compare that. There's no parking on it, so the access to get in and out of these businesses have to be used with the turn lane in the middle or backing up traffic. It can create a very hazardous traffic thing. In time, the Crosstown Parkway is going to be put through, and that's going to relieve a lot of traffic off of Prima Vista and Port St. Lucie Boulevard. Until that, we have to live with this. And I'm firmly against changing these at this time. Thank you.
And I just wanted to remind you also that this is strictly for a land use. This is not, they would still have to come back for a zoning change and also with a site plan. So everything that you mentioned would be addressed at such time if they decide to move forward with it.
And there's no place on this property for a holding pond to catch this runoff.
Okay.
It'll go straight into the river.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Muntz.
I'd like to ask the Planning Department, he's talking about runoff directly into the river. Would not the wastewater management, stormwater management, Mr. Halder be involved on these sites if commercial was involved?
Madam Chair, Mr. Munt, any development of the site would have to meet the South Florida Water Management District standards for retaining water on site and then discharging into the system once they have exceeded the discharge, the amount that could be held on site. So, the point is to keep the water from going directly into the river, having it being treated and meeting the South Florida standards.
So that would be examined before
yes,
anything could be approved.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Members of the board, good
Would you?
evening.
Thank you. Name and address, thanks.
My name is Kathleen Sisio. I live at 225 Northeast Prima Vista Boulevard. I've lived in St. Lucie County with my husband since 1973. We've been longtime residents. I work for the tax collector of St. Lucie County, so I'm familiar with some of the faces around here. I speak before you tonight, though, not as a county employee, but as a resident of River Park, and specifically a resident who resides on Prima Vista Boulevard. My husband and I have lived in our house for 16 years, and my father before me in the same house for 10 years. I am here in support of the 2 Prima Vista residents who are asking for the land use change. Tonight I would like to take you on a journey down memory lane. The original River Park was built in the early 1960s. It was a quaint and quiet little residential spot on the map. The entrance to Port St. Lucie. It encompassed east to west Prima Vista Boulevard from US 1 to Oroso and north to Verada and north-south Verada to Beach Avenue. The houses were all built strong with low-sloped roofs, plaster walls, terrazzo floors, jalousie windows.
and for the most part, ribbon driveways with carports. It was very quaint. There were several models of homes built, and River Park was truly a heavenly place to live. Prima Vista Boulevard was a 2-lane road with only one stoplight, and that was at US 1. River Park thrived in the first couple of decades, and life was centered around the marina, where there was a pool, a playground, and a clubhouse, and also around Sportsman's Park, where all of our kids could play all manner of sports. Everyone knew each other, and we all shopped at the same local Winn-Dixie because it was the only store available in the area. Warren's Dry Cleaning also served as the post office and was located underneath the giant tree that is now in the center of the Bank of America parking lot. Every Halloween, Mrs. Schaefer would dress as a witch and sit on the roof of her house on Prima Vista, throwing out treats to all the kids. The Halloween parade down the middle of Prima Vista on the road, marching right down the 2-lane road, would end up at Mrs. Schaefer's house, and it was a tradition, a yearly tradition. Life was good. Then the city of Port St. Lucie started to grow rapidly around our little piece of heaven. Traffic lights went up at all the intersections, and after decades of being a quiet little 2-lane residential subdivision, the need arose to widen Prima Vista. Along comes the new 4-lane highway, eating up 25 feet of everyone's front yards, and the decline began. We were no longer a small little 2-lane hamlet built along the St. Lucie River. We now had a 4-lane highway leading to all other areas growing around us and encircling us. Driving through River Park today from US 1 to Oroso is a sad and sorrowful sight. The hurricanes didn't do much to improve the houses along Prima Vista, and quite a few of them fell into disrepair. The way I see it, the River Park that was born in another generation in 1960 still exists, but it's on the side streets and the courts and the avenues surrounding Prima Vista Boulevard. In these places, the quiet residential neighborhood is alive and well. Prima Vista Boulevard itself has been lost to the past for those of us who have homes there. Our homes are but a pitiful reflection of the once beautiful entrance that we used to be to the city of Port St. Lucie and beyond. What we, the residents who live on Prima Vista, need is a board with some insight and good, strong suggestions to plan the future of our spot of Prima Vista, which I might add is the gateway to Port St. Lucie West, the Reserve, and everywhere else. If you travel on Prima Vista from Oroso to Bayshore Boulevard, it will be obvious to you that some other board at some other space and time had the foresight and wisdom to plan for the future. It is a pleasant drive on this section of Prima Vista with old-fashioned street lamps, green areas, benches, houses converted to businesses, office condos, doctor's offices, etc. The kind of zoning the city allowed let low-density businesses move in, which gave people work. I know this section of River Park is not River Park and does not have anything to do with the county, but I have to point out that it is the extension of the same road we share called Prima Vista. What I really can't get over is that the River Park section is declining while the city of Port St. Lucie section of Prima Vista is thriving. We need help, those of us who live on Prima Vista. We need the board to take a hard look at the fact that the original highway through River Park and the houses along this road have served their purpose for many decades. We are now in need of visionaries to carry us into the 21st century as the boundaries of the city keeps growing. Prima Vista should not be the eyesore that it is. Prima Vista should be inviting to low-density businesses with open spaces and buffers for the houses just behind ours on Prima Vista. We should be the grand entrance and showcase to what lies beyond, and also for River Park itself. I feel we have been swept under the proverbial rug for more than long enough, and it's time for change. It is up to this board to bring beauty and life back to the main thoroughfare through River Park before we become forgotten and neglected and slide into decline. I find it hard to believe that the people who object the most to suggestions for change don't even live on Prima Vista Boulevard. They live on the side streets away from all the traffic and noise. They have the privilege of living in the quietness and safety of the rest of River Park. We don't have that privilege anymore, and we haven't had it for many years. The traffic alone is scary enough, considering that not only cars, trucks, and motorcycles speed by, but also semi-trucks and the nightly fire engines and ambulances. When the weekends come, Prima Vista turns into a Saturday night speedway. No one obeys the speed limit, and we ourselves have lost 4 mailboxes to speeding traffic. At times, it takes a couple of minutes for ourselves to turn into our own driveway when we're coming home from work. We are forced to turn around in our own front yard because you wouldn't dare back your car out onto Prima Vista. So please, as I state my case for change, I hope that someone with some foresight and vision and gumption, will see the need to change the status quo on Prima Vista and turn it into the show place that those of us who live there want and that it deserves to be. We welcome all suggestions, and we welcome commercial into our neighborhood. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board. I'm very proud of you, dear. That was very good. My name is Joe Ciccio. I just first want to state that I am employed by St. Lucie County Planning and Development Services. 16-year resident living on Prima Vista Boulevard at 225 Prima Vista. Britton is going to be showing some pictures. This is what homes that surround us at this time, and then we're going to transfer into some homes that Kathleen and I went out and took some pictures of what could be Prima Vista in the future. I want to first state the definition of Prima Vista. Many dictionaries quote this as meaning at first sight. Some dictionaries call it love at first sight. Well, you drive down Prima Vista and that's a far cry from love at first sight. Our forefathers believed this road was the beautiful gateway to River Park, containing model homes and residences. However, who would have believed at that time this would come to be one of the 2 major east-west corridors in St. Lucie County, through Port St. Lucie to St. Lucie West, the Reserve, and the I-95 highway. Only one can imagine the amount of traffic passing in a 24-hour period containing passenger vehicles, motorcycles, semi-trucks, buses, and most important, emergency vehicles. I did a little research on decibel ratings on ambulances, and Mr. Grande, I think when we came into the elevator, you heard the sirens. I would say probably about 8 to 9 times that loud is what we would deal with being 50 feet off Prima Vista, because when the fire ambulances and the fire trucks go by, they hit a buzzer, and it really does make your windows and walls rattle. So the young lady that said that before, she wasn't kidding. Because we feel it on the weekends. The motorcycles take off the light on Floresta heading west. They probably hit 5th gear. This is at midnight, or 5th gear right around in front of our home. And the screaming of the pocket rocket motorcycles is really incredible going down through there. They're probably doing 100 miles an hour when they pass our house heading towards Aroso. But this is a weekend thing, and then during the week we have all the traffic and the hustle bustle of all the cars going by. Many of the homes in the area are rented out to transients at this time. Just the home right next to us, since the owner just walked away from it about 6 months ago, it's been rented 4 different times. 4 different times there's piles of trash out front. As the people keep moving out, new people move in, more trash, and it's just getting to be an unbelievable place to live. About 6 months ago, we had a stabbing in the driveway about 3 houses to the west of us. The gentleman walked out of the driveway, staggered towards our home, and fell in our driveway in the easement right there by the road. So therefore, here come the ambulances and the fire trucks right into our driveway. So this is what Prima Vista has become. And we are looking to this board from some direction. I think Britton now, she can put up a few pictures of what we would like to see being commercial office, commercial neighborhood. We took these photos in Indian River County on Route 60. Some were taken on Orange Avenue and some were taken on Delaware. We're not looking for Walmart. We're not looking for gas stations, architects' offices, engineers' offices. Low-density business would put people to work. It is a major corridor. Therefore, it would bring a few cars into each of the properties. I don't think a small business like an engineer's office is going to bring in 20 cars, you know, one client at a time type business. So anyway, that's my speech, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Val Scores. I live in River Park, and I live on Beach Avenue, 616 Beach. I'm here to ask only one big question. I have not heard it mentioned at all. What happened to our grandfather position that the county promised us? When I'm hearing all of these things that are going on, these were only supposed to take place in a very small beginning of US 1 and Prima Vista, because they already had the gas station that many of us ladies walked Prima Vista to try to support it. Now, can anyone tell me what happened to that position that the county left us in? Does anyone know? I realize it was back in the early 1970s, and it was bad. It was a great promise that they gave us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm James Short. I live at 161 Northeast Caprona Avenue, and I've lived in the area for 31 years, and my dream was not to have commercial on Prima Vista Boulevard. That's been a long-time dream of mine. Let's talk about safety on Prima Vista Boulevard. What is safety? What are roads for? Roads are for traffic. And that's what we have, a major corridor. But I want to talk about what's happening here. We can see the outlay right here of Prima Vista.
You're upside down.
Oh, I'm upside down. Okay, here we are looking at the down arrow at 761 and 763. As traffic comes off of US 1 in the evening, it's on a blind curve, and it's coming around that curve. Cars are getting up to acceleration. Dangerous road. Cars are going to be coming in and out of those properties. And to traffic that really is not going at a safe speed. It's supposed to be 35, but I can tell you they're doing 40 and 45 miles an hour, guaranteed. So that's not happening. And traffic pretty much goes morning, noon, and night on this road. Here we see on the left-hand side, we see the property of Lomas, okay? You can't see the other property, but you see that first property, okay? And we see oncoming traffic. Here's a roadside view of those two properties. You notice that there's a turn lane there first. If you're heading towards US 1, you have to turn. In order to turn into those two properties, you have to go across that turn lane, you have to go across 2 other lanes to get into that property. And then there's cars coming out. And then there's pedestrians. And then there's bicycles. Here's the light at Riomar. Okay? And then you got the traffic that's coming, screaming over the Marina Bridge, coming towards this Riomar light. Okay, here's a car that's going so fast, couldn't even stop without going into the crosswalks. I can't make up this stuff, folks. This is Google. Everything I'm putting on here is Google. Look at the skid marks. See those skid marks right there? This is Google. So this is a dangerous road. And it's getting more dangerous every day. Traffic. This comes from the St. Lucie County Traffic Division. I mean, from the Sheriff's Office Traffic Division. There's 31,191 vehicles that travel this road every day. 24,957 during the daytime. 1,790 peak hour volume. Now you try to count to 1,790 in an hour, and you're going to struggle. You're really going to have to reel off those digits. That's a lot of traffic, folks. This is a dangerous road. Dangerous road. Again, the Sheriff's Department citations report. 219 is showing on the snippet of the report I cut out. And when you combine that with the State Road 778, which is also Prima Vista Boulevard, you have 371 yearly citations. That's a lot. Could be a lot more if there is enough police out there. So yeah, wow, I know.
Mr. Short?
Yes.
What is the Route 778?
Say again?
Is Prima Vista Route 778?
Yes, it's also 778.
Thank you.
Here's the accident report from the sheriff.
It is. Let me ask that again. 778 is off of Prima Vista?
No, it is Prima Vista,
it is
too.
Prima Vista.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Munn, it's State Road 778.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the also from the Sheriff's Department. 92 accidents on Prima Vista Boulevard in 2012. That's a lot of accidents. So what I'm saying to you, my friends on the commission, is you need to think safety first, because this is what this road is meant to do. This road is meant to provide flow of traffic, and it's going to get worse. And commercial only means one thing: gridlock. Do you want cars like a parking lot on Prima Vista Boulevard because cars are coming in, egressing and ingressing into these properties, and it's only gonna get worse if you get my gist. It's only going to get worse. So garbage trucks. Garbage trucks are going to have to go into these businesses, and you ever see these big bins the garbage trucks have to back in? Well, that's going to happen on the side streets, because it's certainly not going to do that from Prima Vista Boulevard. So what's going to happen to those houses on the side streets? They're going to get all this stuff going on. Cars are going to miss their turns into these businesses. They're going to go down these side streets and come around to get at it again. And then the neighborhood is going to be up in arms about all this traffic that's going to happen in their area. We need to think, folks. We need to think about what we're asking for, because you're going to get it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Diane Milner. I have a home at 774 East Prima Vista Boulevard. It's in the overlay, or whatever you call it. And I also owned a home on Aldea Street, which was just one house over from Prima Vista. I've lived here since 1981. I was here when Prima Vista Boulevard was a 2-lane road. The only thing here was a Winn-Dixie, a bowling alley, and that conch shell store. So I've been here a long time, and things have changed. Naturally, every town changes. Port St. Lucie Boulevard used to be only a two-lane with nothing but model homes on that road. It's now totally commercial. Maybe one house here and there that never let go. But times are changing, and it's time to move on. We need commercial there. I rent my home there now. It's too noisy for me to live there. Thank God I found a renter. I passed up probably 20 or 30 people that would not rent there because they have children. And it's a big home, and it's a good home for children, but it's just too busy. The street's too busy. I assume that if it ever did go big-time commercial, the roads would be changed and things would happen, and road signs would be up and more lights or whatever. But you can't live on that road if you own a home there on Prima Vista Boulevard. Obviously, the traffic, it's too much traffic to live there. So the only obvious choice is for this area to go commercial, and we're starting out slow. We're going with a nice, and I'm just so happy that Shawn has finally, someone has stepped up and are voting for this, and the people of Prima Vista Boulevard are all for it. The people on the side streets are not, I understand that, but their homes are not going to be affected. It's only the people on Prima Vista Boulevard that are suffering badly, and the homes are declining because people are not living there anymore. They're leaving, and they're waiting for it to go commercial so they can get rid of their homes sitting there, or they're just losing their homes because they're not doing anything with them. So anyway, thanks a lot. I am definitely in support for this commercial.
Thank you.
Good evening, Andrea India, 10937 Southwest Dardanelle Drive, a little bit farther from here. I've listened to what everyone has said this evening, and commercial is the way it seems that it should go. It will be excellent for everything. Everybody has such good arguments. I understand for and against, but another a hearing aid place, a healthy place, a good place that Shawn wants to put up is much better than a bank or anything else that could be there, and it can only help the neighborhood. That's all I have to say. I'm for it.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Veronica Campbell. I reside at 172 Northeast Jardine Road, which is in River Park, about 4 blocks north of Prima Vista by Eroso. I am absolutely for this. I mean, people are saying that it's going to turn big and commercial. It is 3 small properties for businesses that are small and homey and good. I see absolutely nothing wrong for that. My family, I have 2 little boys. We love where we live. I think this would be great for our community, for everything. It would just be wonderful. I approve it 100%.
Thank you.
My name's George Horner, and I live at 395 Abetta Lane. My family moved into the house I am currently living in 1965. I grew up in that house. I used to be able to go hunting 2 blocks over, which is far between to go hunting anywhere anymore around Port St. Lucie. And everything has changed, and I think it's time for a change on that part of the Prima Vista area, and I am all for this, making it commercial. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kathleen Ivins. I live it used to be 190 Prima Vista Boulevard. I now live at 160 Southeast Floresta Drive because the county widened the road and changed my driveway and gave me a new address. And so I was one of the first ones to ask for commercial zoning, and you were kind enough to let me open my doll shop and on the corner of Prima Vista and Floresta, which was very nice with my daughter and I, and didn't seem to cause any havoc in River Park. And the people that are complaining about Prima Vista going commercial don't live on Prima Vista like everybody's been saying. I do. I've lived there since it was 2-lane highway or 2-lane street, and now I can't speak to anyone on my front porch because we can't hear each other. The traffic is so loud. The windows shake like other people have mentioned. My floors vibrate from the traffic, the trucks, the cars, the motorcycles, the buses, everything. And that is no longer a neighborhood road. It's already a commercial road. So to put commercial buildings on that road would free up the prisoners on Prima Vista Boulevard to be able to sell, which we cannot do now. Like it's been said, people don't buy those houses at all. We're stuck. We are prisoners. They can't have children there. The road is dangerous, and the impact of the traffic is just outrageous. So I don't see any other way to go but commercial to improve the neighborhood, to improve what has become. And so I totally approve of what Shawn wants to do, and the hearing aid place is wonderful too. And I look forward to, I also would like to move, but I would like to stay in the River Park area, but not on that freeway. It's off. When I walk out on my porch every day, I go like this, black, I'm sorry, it's black soot on my glass table out front. It's hard to breathe in the house. It's filthy dirty, and I can't fix it. I do feel like a prisoner there, and I do hope that you could see what I'm living with day after day after day, and what the rest of these residents are living with, and it's really difficult. So it's time to change. I'm begging you. Thank you for listening.
Thanks. Thank you.
Hi, I'll keep it short. My name is Adam DeMarco. I live at 107 Northeast Naranja Avenue, directly behind Advanced Auto Parts and close to CVS Pharmacy. They both keep their businesses clean and well maintained. Arosa Avenue is about a half a mile to my west, and US 1's about a mile and a half to my east. And both directions I travel is an eyesore. I see homes being neglected, abandoned, ones abandoned more than 8 years. Their homes, they look like they have structural damage, roof problems, falling garage doors, lawns not being maintained. I believe it's time for a change, and I like to have this community, I like living in this community with the exception of Prima Vista Boulevard. If the properties were to become commercial tonight, all the county overlays rules are followed. It would be a good step in the right direction for the improving our community and St. Lucie County. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bobby Deemer. I live on 151 North Naranja, about 5 houses from Prima Vista. I have a couple of housekeeping items first. When they were talking about the 100 notices sent out on Prima Vista for the meeting, and they were sent only to the Prima Vista residents, and then more surveys were supposedly sent out. I would really like to know how many and where they went, because I've never heard of any of them. And how many were returned in that second mailing? This is really hard. I know I'm going to get hisses, so look out. But I keep hearing that the people who live on the side streets shouldn't have any say. I shouldn't have any say about, I wipe the black stuff off my glass table too. We can't have a say about anything on Prima Vista, but the people in Prima Vista can have a say. But then all the people here tonight don't live in River Park seem to have a say. I'm not sure how the side street people fit. I guess we're not supposed to talk here. Also, on all the letters that came in, I would really like to know whether those people are residents of River Park sending those letters in. Okay, I know you've heard this about 10 times, but there are 1,700 residents in River Park. we're talking about a big community, not just Prima Vista. And this is, as other people have said, it's a beautiful place. There's the most beautiful wilderness river running through the middle of River Park. I looked at those houses, and I went up and down Prima Vista, and I'm the one who invited all of you, confession, to take a ride so you could see the area. But when they were showing the photos of the house on Prima Vista, I'd like to know, because it used to be there were a lot of dilapidated houses on Prima Vista. After the hurricanes, things seemed to clean up. And the houses I saw in those photos didn't look much different than the commercial ones they showed. There's nothing wrong. They're not trashed houses. Okay. The other thing is that there are beautiful trees because it's quite an old community. I have a poster for you to look at. The lots are very small. That's one of the big problems. To go commercial, they're not 3 lots deep. They're 80 by 100 feet deep. They're not deep enough. Well, then, how deep are they?
Well, we'll keep the...
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I don't want to make a mistake. I thought that they were. What I wanted to show you was I took photos. I took pictures of some of the beautiful mature trees we have there. They are in the back. Most of them are in the backyards on Prima Vista. If you put parking lots in the back there, you're going to be cutting down some of the beauty, a great deal of the beauty in River Park. So I'd like to just show you the pictures of that.
Put it on the doc. I can put it on the doc.
I was going to say, if you hand it to Ms. DeWitt, she could put it on the overhead.
That's fine. Okay. If you look at, well, there's so much that's happened to our community that's been bad. And there were some good things that were supposed to happen. For instance, at South Naranja and Prima Vista, there is a beautiful lot with lots of trees. Lucido and Associates, who do planning for parks and things, when they drew the park at River Park Marina, that section was supposed to be an educational park on the North Fork of the river. It was supposed to have big signs explaining the manatees and the flora and fauna. So these are the kind of good things that we could have had in our community that just never happened. Let me read you a couple of things. This is from the 1996 hearing on the commercial. The president of the homeowners said, long-term residents may have a problem selling, and she feels for them. However, she had no concern for speculators. She admitted she had no answers to the problem. She indicated if the area along Prima Vista goes commercial, then the same problems will face the houses adjoining the commercial property. This is a picture of part of the gas station that went in. And as you know, this was a terrible thing that happened to us. We were absolutely lied to about it. Now there's a house on Arosa and Prima Vista just south of the gas station. This picture is of the dumpster that is 11 feet from this house, and there are 2 fueling stations there for big commercial trucks that are 15 feet away. That's what those people, because they put commercial right next to them, that's what they have to put up with. Fueling trucks from gas. At 1996, Mr. Kelly indicated that there were no changes planned for mid-block zones on Prima Vista and explained the process necessary to make any changes would require a comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning. Chairman Klein recommended an overlay with comprehensive plan amendments enacted to allow residential with commercial development to take place over time, with both the number of lots deep and wide, to prevent one lot commercial. One lot commercial, that's one of our biggest problems we've got right there. People living on Prima Vista have complained, and I don't blame them, that it's noisy. Yes, you can't hear the birds. So they're all going to sell their property and move out. We're going to get commercial, and we're not going to hear the birds either. So, Mr. Herring said he had a dream, or someone said that. What about the 1,700 other houses and people living in those houses? Spot zoning is a way of breaking up a neighborhood and ending up with a big mess, and in this area, terrible traffic problems. This area was not built to accommodate commercial traffic safely. The original plan was not like they do now, where they anticipate traffic increasing and increasing. This is a difficult and complex problem. Where am I going with this? We can do this right or make a really big mess of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Phil Guess. I live at 381 Northeast Surfside Avenue, and I'm in favor of turning this commercial. I know that Shawn and these people have been here for a long time, and that he's going to do a good job with the property. It's going to be like a wellness center, and he does respect the environment. He's not going to turn this into like I say, gas stations and all this type of stuff. And I moved here like 4 years ago, and I've noticed the area. You know, certain areas were nicer once you go up to St. Lucie West, and I travel up there to do some shopping and so on and so forth. I feel that on Prima Vista, it's really run down. You see a lot of rental homes. The properties are in disrepair, and it's really a mess. And it's a shame, because Port St. Lucie is such a beautiful area, and I do feel that, you know, done correctly, you know, with commercial homes, done, I'm sure, with certain requirements, you know, kept a certain way, would be a great improvement. Thank you. Thanks.
Good evening. I am Shawn Herring, and this is all my fault. So much has been said here tonight, and I have to tell everyone how much I appreciate your support. Everyone, all of you, everyone has the right to their opinion, and I believe in that strongly. So I appreciate everyone that's here tonight, and I hope that I can see you on February 5th at the commissioner's vote. So,
if you would stand close to the microphone. Thank you.
Sorry. A lot of this speaking tonight, I could rehash and I could go a lot deeper. I can tell you that I have the votes here. There's 140 votes from the residents on Prima Vista and on the properties behind them. I've got them in that box, the original votes, and county staff assisted us in writing these letters and to where it would be legal, and we received every envelope back, every one. So that was an answer to a question that was posed earlier. So this was done in 2 different stages. You know, this vote that we took of all the homeowners on Prima Vista and the abutting properties to them, and we had an overwhelming, over 140 yes votes. Not for this. That was to remove the entire overlay. That's what the vote was for. We turned all of that in years ago when we finished it and completed it. We also we also developed this book that we turned into the county 3 years ago with information about Prima Vista and try to get their assistance in making a positive change there then. It didn't happen. There's a lot of things in this county that need to be done that just always don't get a chance. Everything's not always going to get on top of the list, and I understand that. Wow, do I not like this thing. So, I understand. It's okay that it's been 5 years for me to get to this point. But it's not about the traffic to me. It's not about unhappy people. What this is about to me is that I've been given a job to do. And I can tell you that I've been given the stamina, the desire, and passion to make this healing center happen in the area where it's intended to be. And I've been guided to allow this to happen. Without some energy from above to give me the stamina and the desire to complete this, I couldn't be standing here today. Because in the beginning, when I started this process, I didn't have the money. I couldn't hire Brad Curry. I left his office when I went out and spoke to him to begin with. Wasn't because I didn't like him. And he was cheaper than the other people that I talked to later. But I couldn't afford him. So I tried to do it on my own. The county recommended I go and see River Park Homeowners Association. And as you heard Brad say, at the second meeting, actually, I became a member and was voted on to a special committee. They had already had this committee going to change Prima Vista. I just joined it. And I actually became like the spokesperson for that committee. And the city, at that point, then, after 3 years of work, guided us to do the vote. So that's where I'm leading to, is the vote. On top of the people that are here, I've got 140 yes votes of totally removing the overlay. So, the speed limit itself, you've heard about. I will add one thing, that every minute between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., 30 cars pass the street in front of my house. Every minute of every hour from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I don't really think there's a lot else needed to be stated. I think everything else here stated. I'm a hometown boy. I have 3 sons. I've been married 25 years. I have 4 grandchildren. None of them were born when I started this project. Since I started this, I now have 4 grandchildren. So it's been a little bit of time. I had a lot prepared to say, but in all honesty, with the backing that I have and what I've heard say here tonight, I really don't think any more needs to be said, and I don't need to take any more of your time. Thank you for your efforts tonight and your time.
Thank you. Next. Thank you.
Jeff Miller, 762 Lindo Lane. The property behind the house is ours. Where's our guarantee? Because it floods now when it rains. What kind of fence are they going to put up? They're going to put up a wood fence once they get it commercial property? What guarantees do I have?
Excuse me, sir, could you please speak into the mic? They're having a hard time.
I said, what kind of guarantees will I have that they'll just put up a wood fence for a sound barrier in the back of the property of mine? The water, where is it going to go? Because right now, when you expanded Prima Vista, the back yards are wet now, stay wet. I had the engineers out there when you expanded before lanes, told them about it, and they looked at it and said, yep, stays wet, walked away. What are you going to do about that? I'd like to have some guarantee.
Well,
how about lighting? Is my backyard going to be lit at night?
The whole thing is that, again, this is a land use change. They would have to go through another process of a zoning change and a site plan. So that would come much later, and then at that time, that's when you will, there are no guarantees in life.
True that.
Sorry. But it is a whole process, so you will be notified of that.
Thank you very much. My name is David Kaplan. I live at 410 Southeast Naranja. I'm also president of the River Park Neighborhood Association, and as you can see, all our members are very, very varied in their opinion of how this should go and what it should turn out to be. The mantra of the Homeowners Association used to be, you know, stop the commercialization of Prima Vista. That was their mantra. That's what they believed, and they had a right to that, and they were somewhat true. The county, of course, and the planning and zoning boards and all, they need a bigger vision. They need to think about the long picture, 10, 20, 30 years down the road, and not just what's in my backyard from the NIMBYs now. I'm 2 blocks away from it. I don't like the noise on Prima Vista. I hear it. We've been working with the county, try to get them to fix the road and bump at the bridge there by the park for some time. They still need to work on that and do some work. That was pointed out about the 30,000 cars and all, and I know you're planning and zoning, so you're talking about plan use change, but they're looking also at once the tow hole goes in, it continues and things change. It needs to change. They need to revise the overlay. One of the things about lifting it was they found some of the disadvantages and the mistakes that were done in the overlay. You can take examples now of good businesses on Prima Vista, ones that are adequate parking. I hate to bring up the auto parts store, you know, that it did get in, but they have adequate parking. The bank, the gas station, and some other have adequate parking and means of egress and ingress in and out, which work. However, you have some recent ones, similar to the emergency walk-in center over by the bank, and if you notice that their employees park in the bank's auxiliary parking lot. So I'm not saying I'm for, and I'm not going against commercialization, either one. I'm saying it needs to be looked at in greater depth, because the overlay as itself hasn't been successful, and that's one reason why some people thought it needed to be lifted. It really needs to be changed and needs to be worked on. And as the county brought up, when they asked about changing some of the verbiage in the overlay, they say no, there are many parts of town that don't have any overlay at all. You at least, River Park, you have one. Look at White City and look at some of these other, they have no, we need to do these charrettes and all, and of course that stopped and died. Like I said, there are some good areas, good businesses with the parking that's adequate, and then there's others. If you go up to Hibiscus, I know it's in the city, but it's still off of Prima Vista. There was a nice commercial doctor's office, chiropractor, and dentist, and if their business got, well, it grew. There's more people there, and now when you look at their parking lot, they have to park out in the grass swale out in front of that business. So it needs to be looked at better. There needs to be some kind of comprehensions. You need to look at the big picture. I really feel for the people who live on Prima Vista. Like I say, I'm 2 blocks away and I don't like it. Maybe through eminent domain, they all need to be bought out and relieved of their pressure and pain, and a green space made there. Something similar to the Crosstown Parkway. Look at the nice wide open spaces there. We need to have a nice entrance into the county. It is a pretty area. I like our neighborhood. I like our towns. But on the same token, these people are prisoners in their homes with the noise and the dirt. And I hope you find the wisdom to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, again, Brad Curry, Thing Design South. I did request time to come up at the end, and I think you guys have heard enough tonight. I could probably go on for an hour or more, but I'll save you guys from that. So unless you have any specific questions, I don't.
One more. Let me close the public hearing first. Is there anyone else that wants to speak? I close the public hearing. Go ahead.
Again, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Bringing it back to the board for discussion, questions, and a motion.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve. After considering the testimony presented during the public hearing, including staff comments, I hereby move that the Planning and Zoning Commission of St. Lucie County recommend that the St. Lucie County Board of County Commissioners approve the petition of Hayhurst Larsen for a small-scale amendment to the future land use map from residential urban to commercial because it's consistent with the St. Lucie County Comprehensive Plan, is within the urban service boundary, it meets the St. Lucie County policies and state statutes, and is compatible with the surrounding residential neighborhood.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I would just like to say one of the reasons, or two reasons for the motion to approve is I found the preponderance of evidence, and our learned attorney over there, Brad Culverhouse, may or may not agree with the statement about preponderance of evidence, but I found the neighbor support from residents on Prima Vista to be very moving. And also I found that, secondly, the residents not only wanted the change made, but they spoke well of the applicant. And I think that speaks well for the process and for the individual who is making the application.
Mr. Culverhouse.
Madam Chair, I happen to agree with my colleague on this issue. And while I feel for the residents who are opposed to this, I think that the overwhelming view is clear and convincing, not respondents, but clear and convincing evidence that this is an area in transition, and while the values may have plummeted as they plummeted everywhere in St. Lucie County because of the depression we've been in, I think that the way for the property values, at least on this artery, to go back up is for this to be approved. This is a step.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, can I ask, probably this would be a question for Mr. Satterley. Do you think it's time for staff, for the county staff, to maybe go back and revisit the overlay and maybe try to do something with a small neighborhood charrette or something in that area?
Madam Chair, Ms. Townsend, I do think so, and to be quite frank, I thought so back in 2009 as well. Unfortunately, you know, the board had different priorities for us, and it was just a different time. You know, that's kind of what we're here for. We're certainly willing to take a look at that. You know, that's something that, you know, the board would want to pass along to the Board of County Commissioners for them to consider. You know, certainly, staff is supportive of that. You know, I think that, you know, Mr. Ciccio's example of the State Road 60 corridor up in Vero is a good one as it transitions. You have office uses that are there during the day. They provide the perfect buffer between the busy road and the uses behind them. It's an option. It's an opportunity. But yeah, I think we could take a look at it. But I think because the board made in the past a policy direction, the board would obviously need to make that direction.
I do think it's time to be looked at.
All right, thank you. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Odell?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Grande?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Townsend?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Reynolds?
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Morgan?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Culverhouse?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Chair Munt?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, motion carried. It will be forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners. We now move on to 3B, which is the future land use map amendments for Shawn hearing. We've already heard the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. If there's anyone that wishes to speak. I'm sorry, Mr. Curry, did you want to? I was assuming, and I know never to do that.
Madam Chairman, again, Brad Curry for the record, representing the applicant. I did present both applications during my presentation, but I did want to come up and let you guys know if you did have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But basically, my presentation before will cover this agenda item as well.
Thank you.
Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen of the commission. Jim Short, 161 Northeast Caprona Avenue. Again, we're going to talk traffic safety. Maybe I wasn't explicit enough on how valuable this road is and how dangerous this road is. This is an important facet of traffic, is this road. Okay, we're talking about the 738 property on Prima Vista Boulevard. Again, I'm going to show this because this is very important. 31,000 cars travel that road every day. 25,000 during the daytime. 1,790 during the peak volume. This is a lot of traffic.
Mr. I'm sorry, I don't...
You want me to skip the ones that we've already gone over?
Well, yes, because we've
Okay.
already heard most of this.
Okay.
And also...
Okay,
with
we'll just...
the
I'll just
timing
go,
constraint.
I'll just go right by those.
Thank you.
Okay, here's how the traffic comes from Floresta eastbound towards US 1. It comes around this blind curve with all this greenery that is protected. You can't see until you get around that curve of this house at 738 property. Here's the property on the left. Here's the straightaway. It's about 50 to 100 feet to that property. These cars are doing anywhere from 40 to 60 miles an hour. They're screaming around that turn. This is an overhead satellite view, and right about that point right there is where we get clear sight of the driveway of the 738 property. So once again, that's about 50 to 100 foot. Here you see a bicycle lane in front of the property, and you see a sidewalk. Most of the bicycles don't travel in that bicycle lane. It's too dangerous. The traffic is screaming. They travel along that sidewalk. So a car turning into that property, heading eastbound towards US 1, would have to negotiate bicycles coming down that sidewalk and cars coming out of that property. Here's looking at the light at Rio Mar. Again, I'm going to show this one because this shows how dangerous this road is. Here's one I want you to take very, very close look at. Traffic that's heading westbound on Prima Vista Boulevard, how are they going to get into that 738 property here at the bottom left? They're going to have to go through that suicide lane that is not meant for traffic crossing it. Those lanes, that lane right there with those arrows is set for cars that are turning left at the light on Rio Mar Boulevard. There's no way a westbound car can get into that property. So what are those cars going to do? They're going to come into our area. They're going to come across, first of all, I state that a lot of those cars are going to violate that and cross those 3 lanes of traffic going into that property. And that's a very dangerous situation. Cars will be stopped at the light. They'll leave a space open for a car to turn left right there. There'll be traffic coming, screaming along, and all of a sudden, bam, there's an accident, maybe a fatality. We just had one not too far from this property about 3-4 weeks ago. Here's where I live. I live just to the west of the marina, and I squared out this area. Here's another venue. Cars would come across past the marina. They would go into our area to turn around onto Naranja, Caprona, then Lima, maybe even go all the way around Caprona. We have a lot of kids in that area, folks. I want to protect those kids. I don't want them getting hit by cars that aren't going to obey the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit we have in our residential area. Here's what we're doing this all for a business. Here is something I found in the Hometown News. You ascertain what this is all about yourself. This gentleman is actually advertising in the paper about his business already being there. I've seen that Kong sign out there for what I think is about a year, maybe longer. And I don't make this stuff up. This is Google Maps. And that's all I have. Again, I'm emphasizing safety. This road is going to get worse. It's not going to get better. Commercial is only going to make this road a more dangerous road because it's going to be traffic that is bottled up. It's not going to flow the way it needs to flow. And commercial equals gridlock from my standpoint. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to say a few things. Joe Ciccio, 225 Prima Vista Boulevard. Just a few short things. Number one, I want to thank Mrs. Deemer for showing the beautiful picture of our Royal Poinciana tree that was in our front yard. However, it was taken down by the storm in 2004, so that picture is almost about 10 years old. I do want to urge approval for Mr. Herring, because if Mr. Herring keeps his property maintained like he does now, it'll be a beautiful business to have on Prima Vista Boulevard. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm back. Okay. Andrea, India. I live in Tradition, actually, and have been going to Mr. Herring for several years now, and he will only bring good. He has bring such happiness, wellness, amazing. He's an amazing man, and I don't think anything he would do would harm the community. This has nothing to do with traffic lanes or anything like that. Yes, it's going to be impacted. Look at State Road 60. Look at Port St. Lucie Boulevard. If you come from New York, we used to live by a road, and you had to stop to turn to go into any business. It's going to happen wherever it is. But these people are looking, some people are looking to get out so that they can move to other places and let this place grow. Mr. Herring, I am in 100%, and I'm supposed to cry, somebody told me, but because I'm a crier, but I'm 100% support of this, and that's all I have to say again.
Thank you.
Hi guys, Diane Milner, 774 East Prima Vista Boulevard. Again, I'm in support. It's only natural that it should go commercial. St. Lucie West is totally that way. It's commercial in the other direction. All that's left is us right in the middle to close the gaps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just have a show of hands? Everybody who's in support? Okay. Then you don't have to come out and tell me again. Thank you.
Madam Chair, maybe we could do a count
Well, I could...
for the record.
And could I show of hands of not in support? Okay. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Looks like 5 opposed.
You already had your time.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can we just state for the record the number that said that were in favor?
Even though it is being taped and recorded, I would probably say that I don't even know if I'm allowed to do that. They can watch the film? No, it wouldn't even be on film.
If someone wants to count and say how many there are,
A majority of the people here raised their hand with about
5 opposed.
5 opposed. Yes, Ms. Deemer. Sorry.
A long night for you guys. Okay. I'd like, you're very nice people, and you hate to talk anyway that different, but this has nothing to do with Mr. Herring. He may not be there in 2 years. What it has to do is that property that he has there. How are they going to get cars in and out of there? It's a traffic problem, and we need to have a complete revision of what's going on Prima Vista. We're just going to get, I've gone up to Vero. Everybody says Route 60, it's so beautiful. The lots are very deep up there. It makes a big difference. Not Route 60, but the road there. what Mr. Short was showing you, go and look at that corner. It's so dangerous to go in and out of there. That's what I'm talking about, not about who's going to be there, because people leave and go. Would you like just to talk a while?
Excuse me. We'll come back to the board. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, and I'm reiterating, this is land use change only. It has to go for zoning. It has to go for site approval, at which time they will discuss, I'm sure, the traffic and the ingress and egress. Yes.
William Bergman, 302 Tranquilla. I'm one of these slouches that lives 300 feet from Prima Vista, and I also enjoy the sound and the sirens and well, maybe less of the dirt. That's because I don't clean up my yard that often, so I don't notice it. But the vote is obvious. We know where this is going. What I would like to do is to pick up where Mr. Kaplan left off and challenge the board. It's obvious that people need jobs. The economy really needs something. The question is more commercial zoning the answer? There is plenty of commercial zoning nearby. If we build it, will they come? There is US 1 very close by, which is commercially zoned, I think, from Key West to Fort Kent, Maine, and it is known as probably the ugliest highway going through New Jersey, which I know very well. And between Stewart and Fort Pierce, it's a depressed zone. If we commercially zone this area, will they come? Will this be the solution? We know how it's going with Shawn. This is a foregone conclusion. We can see the writing on the wall. But my question is a good idea in the wrong place still a good idea? There is room on Prima Vista to make it into a US 1 if you go west of Airoso, DeWitt and so forth. East of this bridge, between this bridge and US 1, you really don't have the space to turn it into a US 1 unless you start condemning and buying up properties, which may be a solution. So having said that much, I will go and sit down and leave you the challenge to do something positive with this over time. And I know it's not easy. A lot of views have been aired here, and the pressing economic issue really is real. And I think the pros and cons basically that have spoken here basically agree on all the facts. It's where it's going to go that people are really thinking differently. I challenge you. Thank you.
Oh, we have a gentleman that's been waiting against the wall. Thank you.
Again, I'm Mr. Costello. I have a house on 185 Celestial. My kids live there. It's not safe for them. They are big boys. They both complain about the noise. This is not the thing. You're talking about small business. I am a small business. I've been a small business my whole life. My father was a small business. My kids work for our business. I work with other small businesses. We all push American-made products. We all work with each other. I work with numerous small businesses through the Tri-County area. We all work together. So-and-so needs a product, we work around. You look in any of our offices, you'll see a stack of cards of the other small businesses. We're all paying a lot of insurance, taxes, county taxes, license and all. Small business is what's made this country. Without it, we're back to China. I'm sorry, folks. We need small business. If it's not, we're in trouble. If sections in there, I'm from a small town in Homestead, born and raised. I came up here after Hurricane Andrew. I saw small town business down there thrive through neighborhoods, and they're still thriving. It did not kill the neighborhood. It improved the neighborhood. People live next to it. They live in their homes and their businesses. I've seen it in Vero Beach. I've seen it in Stewart. I'm all over the Tri-County areas. It works. If y'all can work it, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brunner. I live on 490 East Prima Vista Boulevard. It's not hard to see that Prima Vista is a very dangerous place to live. 6 months ago, a truck came across 5 lanes of traffic.
You need to pull the mic down.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
6 months ago, a truck came across from the far side of Prima Vista, across 5 lanes of traffic, took out the side of my house and my one garage, because he dropped his cell phone and bent down to get it. I know the Deemers hear the noise as much as we do because it travels down the river, and I feel very sorry that they have that, and I'm sure they have the dirt that we have too. But the commercialization of Prima Vista has become a very personal issue between the people who live in one little area that's like 3 blocks of Prima Vista and the side streets. I mean, it's as I said earlier, my intersection, I can't do anything with because I need 5 lots, and I don't own 5 houses. So that's not the point that I'm fighting for my commercialization. I think you should be able to do on a road that size that is a state road that's county maintained and has that much traffic that it should be considered that it should be a commercial area. It's certainly not like living on Thornhill or a side street where you might have 100 cars a day go by. 30,000 is a lot more than 100.
Thank you.
This will be quick.
Oh, I heard that before.
You will, because this is positive, because this is Walter Deemer again, and I just wanted to say that I never realized what a tough job you men and women have. Not only are you in the planning business, not only are you in the zoning business, but now you're being asked to curb ambulances and fire engines runs, you're being asked to curb the dirt, and you're being asked to curb speeders. And I think this is a monumental task for anybody, and you people should be appreciated for what you are doing, and I commend you for being here, and I really wish I had brought you a peach.
Any more public comment? Seeing none. Were you getting up? Oh. I am closing the public hearing and bringing it back to the board.
Madam
Well, I
Chair.
know you had said earlier you were slow, so I wasn't quite sure.
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
Ms. Townsend.
I have a question. I don't know if staff can answer this, but I did go visit the property, and I myself have a concern with this particular piece because it is 2 lanes heading east and 2 lanes heading west. There is no median, and there is a turn lane very short heading east and heading west onto Rio Mar. And because, like the gentleman spoke, I apologize, I don't remember your name, I do agree that as you come over the bridge, it's a blind sight, and as people come off of that bridge, from that bridge to US 1, it's a very narrowed area, and it's only 4 lanes. There's no turning lanes except to go on to Rio Mar. And that was my concern, and I did speak to some of the residents as well, too, that because of this property where it's located, being just outside the cusp of what would be allowed, I see that it could be a traffic hazard and many accidents happening there.
Any other comments from the board?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Grandi.
I probably should have said this before my vote on the last question, but I think what's happened over the years on Prima Vista has created a situation where there's absolutely no doubt the discussions about being trapped in their homes, they're right. The discussions about a large percentage of those homes having gone rental rather than resident owner, that's right. There's no question
change is necessary in that area. And I think everybody recognizes that, and I think the vote that you saw up here was a recognition of that. I'm going to vote against this one also, and I need to explain the reason. I really believe that this is a very sensitive area. It's a very dangerous area. I think our staff member was absolutely right when he said he thought this should have been planned with the people and the staff. I believe that as this goes commercial, that's the way it should be done. I think what we're doing here tonight is we're doing this in onesies, and I think the term that was brought up before was spot zoning. If we continue to do Prima Vista the way that we're doing it tonight, we're going to wind up with these unplanned business lots that weren't platted for businesses, they were platted for residents. The businesses are going to use the existing residential buildings, so the parking capabilities for those businesses is going to be virtually impossible to do well. We're going to have no turning lanes into the businesses, although the use of the properties, the volume of turns into those properties is going to be much higher than they were when they were residential. So, it's a foregone conclusion. We're shifting. I really wish that we would take the time to stop and plan a transition that says this goes to a well-planned, I don't want to say upscale, but a well-planned, well-laid-out commercial piece, as opposed to what I'm afraid that we're going to get is a quarter of a mile of residential buildings turned into commercial uses with non-standard signage and dangerous driveways and insufficient parking and all of the things that happen when we don't do it in a well-ordered manner. And that's the basis for my vote. I don't believe that, from where we are today, there's no way this is going to stay residential, and in the long run it shouldn't. But I'd rather see this done in a planned fashion with a well-laid out, well-planned commercial for the entire area, as opposed to going down in onesies and winding up with exactly what you've seen in every other area that goes this way.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Munt.
I'm going to support the applicant. If you don't say yes, then you don't do the planning. If we say no and turn it down, there wouldn't be any reason to look at the site, look at the road, have a traffic study as part of the process when they come forward again. The Board of County Commissioners can work with Department of Transportation, the county engineer, and those people. We've all seen where commercial properties are approved, and then you, as part of it, you put in turning lanes, you widen the roads, you do the planning, and we would have that opportunity if this site were to be approved. To turn it down and not have the opportunity of planning for it, I think it'd be short-sighted. We need to start the process.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Culverhouse.
I agree with Mr. Munt. I think that...
Wow. This is getting to be habit for
third time's a charm. I also agree with Mr. Grandy. In a perfect world, it'd be great to be able to plan it out so everything is done perfectly, but this is not a perfect world. And I think that we need to realize that this is a area in transition, and it's going to happen one thing at a time, but like Mr. Munt says, it's going to, with the county's resources and working with the state, and traffic problems, I think will will be worked on, so I think we should move forward with it.
What? Any more comments, or do I hear a motion? Mr. Reynolds?
I'd like to make a motion. After considering the testimony presented during the public hearing, including staff comments, I hereby move that the Planning and Zoning Commission of St. Lucie County recommend that the St. Lucie County Board of County Commissioners approve the petition for Shawn hearing for a small-scale amendment to the future land use map from residential urban to commercial use, because the proposal is consistent with the objectives and regulations of the St. Lucie County Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code, and such it is considered to warrant approval.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Odell?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Grande?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Townsend?
No, ma'am.
Vice Chair Munt?
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Morgan?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Culverhouse?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Reynolds?
Yes, ma'am.
Motion carried, and it will be forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners. I do want to reiterate to everyone that is out there, the Planning and Zoning Commission does serve an advisory capacity. This will go on to the Board of County Commissioners for final approval. And from what I had heard earlier, I believe that is scheduled for February 5th, I believe.
Yes, ma'am.
So there's another chance to be heard. Thank you so much. And we have another item, so thank you. Okay, on to item 3C, Ordinance 13-007, Land Development Code Text Amendment Updating, and it's the Britton DeWitt Show tonight.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
And we may want to wait for maybe a couple of seconds or minutes. Thank you.
Keep talking to your commissioner. You just have to move it around. You're welcome. Good night.
Bye-bye. Have a good night. Wow, nobody's going to stay for the end of the meeting? My last meeting, and you're leaving me?
You've got time to go get the peach.
How do you know it's your last meeting?
Can we get somebody to lock that door?
We're mandating what we still love.
Right. Okay. You're welcome to stay. We have another agenda.
You're missing the best part.
Okay, yeah, you're going to miss the best part. There's election of officers. Ms. DeWitt, go ahead.
Again, Britton DeWitt, Senior Planner for the record, presenting item number 3C, which is a text amendment to the Land Development Code, petition by Rio Arcade to allow bingo parlors as a permitted use in the Commercial General Zoning District. This proposed text amendment is a public hearing, and notice was published in the St. Lucie News Tribune on January 3rd, and staff has not received any comments from the public regarding this proposal.
The obituaries. The obituaries.
I'm sorry, we just noticed what page it was on.
Most of our ads do run in that section of the paper.
Most widely read.
Bingo parlors are categorized by the United States Department of Labor under the Standard Industrial Code for Amusements and Recreational Services, or SIC 79, which also includes, among other things, billiard parlors, card rooms, bowling instruction, yoga instruction, bridge clubs, fortune tellers, gaming, and arcade parlors. This is an excerpt of Section 30103S of the Land Development Code that has been in place since before 1990 and speaks to permitted and conditional uses within the Commercial General Zoning District. The numbers at the end of each use is the SIC code, and you can see at S2D, amusements and recreation services that are identified under SIC 79 are to be processed as permitted uses within the CG zoning district. That is all the amusements and recreational services except stadiums, arenas, racetracks, amusement parks, and bingo parlors. And then these accepted uses of amusement parks, stadiums, arenas, and racetracks are then listed under the conditional use section 7, But as you can see here, bingo parlors are not, which results in bingo parlors not being a permitted or a conditional use in any zoning district. So the Land Development Code is currently lacking in clarification as to how to process bingo parlors within the CG zoning district. So to clear up this discrepancy that currently exists, the text amendment proposes to just strike the term bingo parlors, which would result in bingo parlors becoming a permitted use in the CG zoning district under SIC 79. The analysis staff conducted indicates that the proposed text amendment is in compliance with the Land Development Code, and it helps clear up the current lack of clarification as to how to process bingo parlors and provides a clearer process for small businesses wishing to open up a bingo parlor within St. Lucie County. The proposed text amendment is in effect just adding live bingo to the existing electronic bingo and arcade gaming that is already in place. And the high impacts associated with the conditional uses of stadiums, arenas, racetracks, and amusement parks do warrant the conditional use process. However, bingo parlors are associated with impacts that are significantly lower than an arena or an amusement park and are comparable to arcade gaming and billiard uses that are both permitted in the CG zoning district. And so in order to clear up the current lack of clarification on how to process a proposed bingo parlor in the CG zoning district, staff is recommending that the proposed text amendment to the Land Development Code be forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners with a recommendation for approval. That concludes my presentation. Staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the board. Any questions for staff? Mr. Grande?
Do I understand correctly, today, bingo parlors are allowed in no zoning districts?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Grande, that is correct.
Okay. And the only other question I have is there some reason why we're choosing to change them to permitted uses as opposed to conditional uses?
Because of the impacts associated with the bingo parlors are more in tune with the already permitted uses of arcades and billiards and not with the impacts associated with the other exceptions of stadiums, arenas, racetracks, and amusement parks.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Munt?
Mr. Witt, the term bingo parlor, is there any other game that would be permitted at that site? Are there other video games that could be offered, poker, anything like that, or is bingo only?
Well, no, those are already permitted under SIC 79 in the CG zoning district.
I understand, but if a bingo parlor is making application under this change, at a bingo parlor, can they offer anything else other than bingo?
They would be able to get a zoning compliance for any of the uses that are permitted, which is the card rooms, the billiards, the arcades. They would be permitted to get a zoning compliance for those other uses.
All right, so a bingo parlor could have other things than bingo available?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just the other uses, the poker, if you will, is that because amusements and recreation services are allowed?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it wouldn't be because bingo is allowed?
Right, they're already allowed in de facto because they're not listed as an exception like bingo parlors and amusement parks are. I also listed there was yoga instruction, bowling instruction. There's a large list of uses that are permitted under SIC 79.
And, you know, Madam Chair, members of the board, and at the end of the day, we really racked our brains to figure out why they had been specifically excluded, and we couldn't come up with a reason. So, you know, it just seemed comparable impacts, and so many of these other sorts of amusement kind of things that we're seeing, you know, in the county are already permitted. We just couldn't come up with a good reason why, you know, bingo had been, for some reason, excluded in the past. So,
Madam Chair. You got to remember, this was the Bible Belt.
They're worried about the noise, hollering bingo.
Yeah, that's the reason.
They're worried about the noise.
It's gambling. Those Baptists don't like that.
Well, maybe it would be,
And I'm a Baptist.
maybe it would be appropriate on Prima Vista then, and nobody could hear it.
Whoa, bada bing. Okay.
I really like the noisy bingo.
Bingo.
Okay. Mr. Rodriguez, would you like to do a presentation or say anything?
Good evening, Madam Chair and staff. I'm not exactly sure if you guys are really aware with the whole bingo thing, but bingo is actually a nonprofit type of event that takes place. It's nothing that we actually gain revenue from. The reason why we want to bring it in is because, of course, we have it on the arcade machines, but a lot of the clientele that we have that come into Rio Arcade are the older crowd that would prefer something live and is a little bit more entertaining for them. Nonetheless, what we basically do, we do the same thing down in Miami, and all the proceeds actually go to nonprofit organizations. So we actually have organizations in the area already that would benefit from this, and of course it would also allow us the opportunity to create more employment opportunities as well for other people to actually run bingo. The other thing is that the company that owns Rio Arcade, we're actually the largest in the world in what we do, and we are planning to open up 25 more Rio Arcades within the state of Florida, hopefully another one in St. Lucie County. So this would just add something else that we can add to another location, which maybe we can open up on the west side and just, of course, create more employment opportunities. So it's nothing that we benefit from, but people in St. Lucie County can benefit from both employment opportunities and the nonprofit organizations that we actually donate the proceeds to.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Odell.
Mr. Rodriguez, are you a 501 nonprofit? I mean, are you incorporated as a nonprofit?
No, we're not.
Or not-for-profit, should I say?
We are not a non-for-profit, but the bingo itself has to be registered under a non-for-profit. So basically it's, to get technical, it's two entities under one roof, but the bingo has to be registered as a non-for-profit, both with the state and federally as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Munt?
Mr. Rodriguez, just for my edification, could you list some of the nonprofits you support and where they're located?
The biggest one that we do support is Lions Club. We have different chapters throughout Miami, and they do have chapters up here. The way the bingo non-for-profit works is if you do not have any organizations, let's say within St. Lucie County, you can actually go within a 15-mile radius of the location where you're actually at. So if we don't have anyone, let's say here, then we can actually donate the proceeds to, let's say, Lions Club in Martin County. But what we would actually do is solicit the non-for-profits in our direct area first. And of course, they're going to stick out their hand and take free money if they can get it.
I promise we've got them.
I'm pretty sure we do. So that would be our main objective, of course, is to get them to non-for-profits within St. Lucie County. But the main one that we do work with is the Lions Club, and there are a couple of chapters within the area.
Okay, so as your process moves forward and the question came up, we could rely perhaps on your solicitation of St. Lucie County nonprofits by what, letter or contact some way?
We can do letters, we can do direct calls. I'm the vice president and CFO of the company in North America, so I'd be more than happy to take a direct approach and soliciting them directly, personally.
If the revenues are generated in St. Lucie County, I'd like to see some benefit locally. And I appreciate the employment standpoint that you're talking about.
That would be our main objective. If we're going to have it in St. Lucie County, of course, we would rather give it to St. Lucie County as opposed to Martin County or Indian River County.
Okay. Thank you.
That's what we need.
Madam
Chairman.
Ms. Young.
Just for purposes of clarification, so that you all understand, it's what he said is correct. There's actually a statutory requirement for the operation of bingo parlors, bingo games, that they be associated, provide and direct the proceeds to nonprofits. So it's not just his organization, but any other organization that might want to do the same thing under this zoning change would have that same obligation.
Thank you. And Mr. Culverhouse?
No, I just, if he needs to know who to contact with the Lions locally, I can give you their name and number.
That would be wonderful. I would appreciate
Oh, there's
that.
a lot more, too, out there.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Boys and Girls Club.
Madam Chair, is it possible that
Eastern Star?
if we do this, can we specify that if the bingo halls are going to be in St. Lucie County, since the proceeds have to go to a nonprofit, the nonprofit recipients have to be in St. Lucie County, so that the funds that they have to give to nonprofits stay within our county that's brought in from the revenue at that bingo hall there? Is that possible? It's not?
I don't think it would necessarily be appropriate under the zoning and under the land development code and the permitted uses, because that really, the whole gaming thing is really governed by the state. There's a lot of preemption there. So I don't know that it would be appropriate here. I can look at it generally speaking, but the state has such a specific statute dealing with the bingo operations that I think that's probably going to be preempted as to what it, and I'll look at that and provide it to you all at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
Just for my own edification, would I be correct in assuming that the proceeds that go to nonprofits are after expenses for the bingo?
Correct. And ultimately, our expenses there for the bingo wouldn't necessarily be much, considering that we already have an ongoing business there. So technically, most of what we would actually exclude out of that would be paying the employees that are actually hired. So it's not like we're necessarily benefiting from it directly.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to open the public hearing. If there's anyone here that would like to speak for or against, seeing none, bring it back to the board.
Can we have them line up on the wall?
Bring it back to the board for a motion. Or questions or discussion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Grande.
after considering the testimony presented during the public hearing, including staff comments, I hereby move that the Planning and Zoning Commission of St. Lucie County recommend that the St. Lucie County Board of County Commissioners approve the petition of Rio Arcade for a text amendment to the Land Development Code to allow bingo parlors as a permitted use in the commercial general zoning district, because it will fill a gap that we have right now with no districts that currently allow it. Commercial general is the most logical, and there appears to be no negative impacts.
Second.
Okay, that was Mr. Reynolds, so it's been moved in, I'm sorry?
Culverhouse.
Mr. Culverhouse.
Mr. Reynolds is much more handsome than I am.
Which one on me?
Madam Secretary, please, is there any discussion?
A lot younger.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Odell?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Townsend?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Reynolds?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Chair Munt?
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Morgan?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Culverhouse?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Grande?
Yes, ma'am.
Motion carries. Now on to other business. We have the approval for the meeting schedule everyone received. Any questions? The only question I had is that typically we never have a December meeting. If we want to go ahead and strike that off the schedule now.
I think we always have one on the schedule, and we always cancel it at the November meeting, but...
It might have to happen, Madam Chair. I don't think we ought to have
Okay.
a gap.
We'll just leave it as is. Are there any other discussions? I'm sure with the budget hearings too, one meeting may have to be bumped or moved, but we'll deal with that when we come to it. Okay. Election of officials. Ms. Young.
Madam Chair.
Do we need a motion to accept the schedule?
Do we need a motion to accept the schedule? Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Culverhouse.
in regard to the elections, are you sure that you won't agree to serve another term?
I'm a true believer that give other people a chance. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would love to do another year. However, there's a lot of other people on the board that haven't been chair or vice chair, and I'd like to pass on the gavel. Let other people have a chance.
Well, I think you've done a superb job.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate
Deserving
that.
of a peach.
Oh, I know, and no peach. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Young for elections of elections.
Madam Chair, before you do that, then I'd like to ask you, if you were nominated, would you decline?
I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Young. Yes. No, and you know what? Thank you. But I just think new blood is always good, and it gives other people a chance to experience being vice chair and chair. It really does.
Well, you've done a great
do
job.
it again.
Yes,
Well,
you
thank
have.
you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Even though I threw things at Mr. Grande a time or two, and Mr. Lowndes, and he's not here tonight, so I can't even say anything to him. But okay, Ms. Young, take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As you know, at your January meeting, the Land Development Code provides for the Planning and Zoning Commission to elect officers for the coming year. So since this is your January meeting, we'll open the floor for nominations for the position or the office of chairman.
I'd like to nominate Britt Reynolds as chair.
Second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations?
I move that we close the nominations.
Second.
Nominations are closed. Would you like to call the roll, Madam Secretary?
Okay, let's see here. Mr. O'Dell?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Morgan?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Grande?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Townsend?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Munt?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Culverhouse?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Reynolds?
Can I say no? No. Yes, ma'am.
Would you, I'm sorry, she needs to calculate the. It appears to be unanimous for Mr. Reynolds. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
You guys sit next to me, though. Keep it going in order.
Is the floor now open for nominations for vice chair?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Young, I would nominate Kathy Townsend.
Second.
Are there any other nominations?
Down there all by herself, too.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah, we need to move her up here.
I move that we close the meeting.
I like it down here. I like it down here.
Mr. Grande has moved that nominations be closed. Is there a second?
Second.
Nominations are closed, and I'll ask the secretary to call the roll, please.
Okay, Mr. O'Dell?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Grande?
Yes, with great pleasure, ma'am.
Mr. Reynolds?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Munt?
Yes, ma'am.
And Ms. Townsend?
Yes, ma'am, I guess.
Ms. Morgan?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Culverhouse?
Yes, ma'am.
And to Mr. Reynolds, congratulations. Yay! And thank you again for everybody's support. I thoroughly enjoyed this past year.
And there's nobody I would rather have throw things at me.
And I am
I'm going to
passing
practice,
along.
okay? I'm getting ready.
Well, that's why it has dings.
She has such flair.
Man.
And I will be passing on my pea shooter to Miss Townsend, so, beware. No, I'm kidding.
And Ms. Townsend, I'm going to be gone the first 6 months of the year, so no, I'm kidding.
Don't do that to me. But I do also, I know that we just nominated new officers, but I do also want to say thank you to staff. Y'all do a great job, Heather. I know it takes effort for y'all to be here and give up your time, too. So I also want to take this time to say thank you for all that you do, too.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And they're superb in working with during the year as chair.
And if I may, I would like to personally thank our outgoing chair for the last year. It's really been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been entertaining and a pleasure. Thank you.
And real interesting.
Well, it was. It was a year of, I think we tied for the shortest meeting of history of planning and zoning, and also the longest motion by Mr. Culverhouse. That will go down in the books.
I've even got
And with-
what I said now.
Oh,
And with Mr. Reynolds and me, I'm sure that we will beat the record of the shortest meetings.
If you don't remember your motion, they've got like 33 pages of it printed down there. Or is that long? No. I already threw away my minutes, so are we closing the motion to adjourn now? Any other business?
I would just like to ask Mark, if you would just continue to check with staff, though, please, about revisiting the charrette for that area. I think it's needed. I mean, it's definitely going to go in that direction, and I agree with both Mr. Grande and Mr. Munt, but if we could just kind of look into that a little bit.
Your comments are part of the record. It'll go to the board, be in the minutes, and I'm sure that will come up at the board meeting. So, the board will have an opportunity to weigh in on that.
Thanks.
Perhaps the circumstances are now such that, there's maybe a little more unanimity amongst the neighbors as well, where there hasn't been in the
Right.
past.
Well, thank you.
Does that cover the Planning and Development Service Director comments?
It does.
All right. Motion to adjourn? Adjourn. Ooh, that felt good. And I get a big chair more than anything. I get a big chair.